Hi everybody and welcome back to my War Games hobby channel. Alec here. I'm at home in my little bolt hole and I've been trying to look at, after not playing House Caesar for about 4 years now, I decided to try and get back into it. And I've had one game with Graham down the club and we had a lot of questions and a lot of hold-ups because we didn't know the rules that well. And I'm having another game in my bolt hole just to see how it goes. And I thought I'd video it just to show you, if you haven't played House Caesar before, then you may enjoy it as well. It's going to be a very straightforward, basic game. I've got one division on each side. I'm playing early Imperial Rome against Dacians, or they can be any warband type army. They could be Germans or Gauls, but I've got Dacians. I'll just go through the list with you. You can see, let's look at the Romans first. We've got 2 units of legionaries. There we are, this one here and this one here. We've got a unit of auxilia, and then a unit of bowmen, and then a scorpion on a wagon, in fact. Quite a nice little wagon, I put that one on. That's the Romans. Now we'll come and have a look at the Dacians. In the middle here we have a warband, but they're armed with double-handed weapons, or some of them are anyway. In fact, the Dacians used to have what's known as the falques, so they get a bonus for that attack. The enemy's morale is capped at 5+, and as the legionaries have 4+ normally, that means they're going to have reduced armour. The other 3 units are just normal warband, those 3. Then I've got a unit of javelin-armed skirmishers on the other side near the wood. So just to go through the army list, there's the list you can see. The legionaries are drilled and they can form testudo, and they're armed with the pilum. Basically that means drilled means they will move even on a fouled order, move at least once, and they can move through friends without disorder. Testudo means they get a free move, even on a failed order. They get a +2 morale save from shooting, so if they're going to get shot at, then they'd go into testudo. They're not going to get shot at really much by this warband. I suppose the javelins could, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. But if they do face a shooty army, then going into testudo would be really, really useful. And of course it may change into battle line if attacked whilst in testudo, so it's quite a useful defensive special to have. And finally the pilum, which gives the enemy a -1 morale save in the first round, only in the first round. As I mentioned, I've got Dacians on the other side. The one unit has the double-handed weapon, so the enemy's morale is capped at 5+, so it won't affect the bowmen and the auxilia, but it will affect the legionaries. Their armour will drop by 1. They'll be saving on 5 and 6 rather than 4, 5, 6. And the other thing that they have, in fact all the Dacians warbands have those, all 4 of them, is wild fighters. So they re-roll 2 missed combat attacks in the first round of the game. So it's only that very first round. They're a bit keen to get stuck in, but after that they're not quite so keen. So we're going to see how we get on. I've started quite closer than normal, because when I had another game with this yesterday, just as a trial to see how it went, I spent just quite a few moves sort of closing up, so I've actually reduced the distance slightly. We're a bit strapped for space, but that doesn't matter. The idea is, you can imagine this is just one division, and there may be divisions either side that are fighting separately, but this one division has got plenty of room to have a little game, and I want to keep it simple anyway. There won't be a lot of manoeuvring. It'll be a case of getting stuck in. Right, the first thing I'm going to do is roll a dice to see who starts. The Romans rolled a 2, the Dacians rolled a 4, so it's the Dacians that will start first. Now I'm going to assume that those watching this haven't played the rules before, so I'm going to explain a little bit what I'm doing. If you have played before and you see me make mistakes, I'd really appreciate it if you'd let me know what I've done wrong, because I'm sure that I will make mistakes. Right, so let's make a start. Both the leaders are level 8 leaders, so they have to roll 8 or under to activate, because this is going to slow them down. And if they go into this rough ground, they can do one move. So these 2 units here are going to have to slow down anyway. The other 2 could go faster, but do they really want to? So I'm only going to try and move once anyway, but the whole division is going to move. The light infantry going into the skirmishers going into the wood won't make any difference. They'll still go in that wood without having to go into open order, because they're already in open order. So we're going to try and move them forward. I need at least an 8 to do that. Yeah, they rolled a 5. Now, as it happens, if this terrain wasn't here, I could have then done 3 moves, because that's 3 under the 8. 8, if I roll an 8 or a 7, they move once. If they roll a 6, they move twice, because that's 2 under their command value. And if they rolled a 5 or under, then they could move 3 times. So had that rough terrain not been there to slow them up, they could have moved considerable distance. So I'm going to do a 6-inch move, as I just mentioned, because the terrain here does reduce all movement just to one move. If that hadn't been there, they could have moved a bit quicker. But I think that the Dacians want to make sure that they all go in at the same time. They don't want to get fragmented. I've done this before and it doesn't work. They need the support of other troops. So they're going to slowly move up, take their time. The only problem they've got is that the Romans have got some ranged troops. Right, so it's the Romans' turn. They got 2 units that can open fire. The range for bows is 18 inches, so they're well within range. They'll fire straight ahead at the nearest target. They've got they shoot with long range with 3 dice. So there we are, 3 dice. You don't have to. I'm not going to move. I'm just going to stand there and shoot. The Romans are in no hurry. They're going to stand there and shoot anyway. So let's do these first. The Romans, bowman edge, hitting on 4, 5, 6. Now there is, if they're over 12 inches, they lose 1. Then they are over 12 inches. They're half an inch short. So in fact, they're not going to be hitting on 4, 5, 6. They'll only be hitting on 5s and 6s. So here's the roll. Cock dice. So no hits. They didn't get any 5s and 6s. And now the Scorpio is going to fire. That's only got 2 shots. But again, it's over 12 inches, so it's reduced down to just 5s and 6s. No hits again, so the Romans haven't got off to a very good start. So that's the Roman move finished. So the Dacians again, they've still got to move slowly because of that terrain, but we'll just roll anyway and see what happens. Again, they rolled a 6. They would have been able to move twice if they were out that terrain. Okay, there we are. The Dacians have moved up. Incidentally, I say you roll 8. Everything is within 12 inches of the leader. But if the leader was, say, over here, and he wanted to command this unit to move, it's over 12 inches. He'd have to roll 7 or under. So you want to try and stay within 12 inches of all your troops, ideally, the leader. If in fact also he wanted to move the entire army, he would have to base it on the 7, because that's the unit that's reduced the command dice that needed. But as it happens, he's in the middle anyway, so they're all within 12 inches, so he doesn't have a problem. So it's the Roman go again. Now the Romans could, they're more than a move away. They can move on initiative because the enemy are within 12 inches, but they can only move once if they do that. So they won't actually hit the target. If they want to charge, therefore, they're going to do 2 moves. They'll have to roll for it. But do they really want to? These certainly don't want to. This is the problem here. These guys are going to be facing something that they won't want to be facing, a warband. But the others, you could argue over here, they could try and go in if they wanted to. But they're just going to stand and wait. Right, so it's we're going to open fire again. 3 bowmen. This time they're hitting on 4, 5, 6s because the enemy are not more than 12 inches away. Wow, that's a pretty good roll. 3 6s. Now, not only is that 3 hits, they do get to save, and Dacians, the normal warband, save on 5s and 6s. The two-handed ones only save on 6s. So they've got to save anyway, so we'll try and roll as many 5s as we can. Oh, they did save 2. That's pretty good going. So they've only got 1 hit. Now I'm going to use the green dice to indicate a hit. And now also, I did roll 3 6s, didn't I? And if you roll a 6, the unit that is hit by a 6 has to do a break test. So I'm going to roll 2 dice, which is 8. And the result of that is hold your ground without penalty. So they don't have to go back. If, for example, they had rolled a 6, it would have been hold your ground disordered or retreat in good order. So they have the option to go back or stay disordered. If they'd rolled really badly, if a 4, for example, they would have retreated disordered. And it's only if they rolled 2 or less. So if you'd rolled 2 1s, then the unit would be break if the unit suffered any casualties, which it did. Otherwise, retreat disordered. So it didn't do that anyway. It was fine. It's still in the game. Now the artillery, or the Scorpio, should I say, a 4 and a 6. So that's 2 hits. Now they would normally save on 6s, but because being hit by artillery, if you look at the stat sheet, so hit by artillery is -1. So in fact, they do not have a save. So those 2 hits are both being taken. Put that on those ones, the green dice with a 2 on, because when they get to 6, they become shaken. But at the moment, they've only got 2, so they're fine. And again, it has to do a test. Let's see what they do. Or 11, that's no problem, is it? So they're not worried about that at all. Now it's the Dacians' turn again. They're still not within 1 move. They're still just going to be short. Now the Dacian commander could decide, for example, if he charged in here, they would get support, you see, from the auxiliary. So he's going to just move forward 1 more time. So let's roll the dice to make sure he can do that, which he can. So they're just going to move them up so they're outside that terrain. They could go a bit nearer, but there's no point. They're going to go in next time anyway. In fact, I could have moved all of these on initiative anyway. I needn't have rolled for them because the enemy are within 12 inches. And if you do an initiative move, everybody can move forward for free. So I needn't have rolled for that. All right, take the casualties with them. There's 2 on that unit, 1 on that so far. Right, so the Romans. The thing is now, the Romans have an option because when you charge, you get a bonus. So really, it's in their interest now to charge. And they can do so on initiative. So I think that's what we'll do. The Romans are going to go in here. They're going to charge into... They're going to be charged next time anyway, so they might as well take the initiative and go forward. They'll charge the light infantry, and they will charge that unit there. We're going to avoid these. Unfortunately, the artillery might well be in a bit of trouble. But they can open fire first anyway. So the infantry will fire first, and hopefully it might cause a few problems. It's got 2 hits. Let's roll for saves, 5s and 6s. Didn't save any. So that unit has now taken 3 hits. Now you've got to do a morale test, or a break test, should I say. A total of 6. So if you look at the shooting test, hold your ground disordered or retreat in good order. Now that's exactly what they wanted. So what's this player going to do? The Dacians, what are they going to do? Should they stay there disordered? If they stay there disordered, they have to stay still next move to remove that disorder. So no, what they'll do is they'll retreat in good order. So they've got to go back 6 inches. The reason they're going back is because next time when it is their turn, they can still charge from there. They're going to have to get a good dice roll to actually hit the bowman. but they might as well at least give themselves the opportunity. What they don't want to do is become distorted and stay there anyway. So they've moved back, and they've now got 3 hits on them. And the artillery are going to open fire on the warband in the middle. No hits, so that's a shame. They really could have done with that. I mean, that Scorpio is now going to be in trouble, I'm afraid. Right, so now we've got a melee. So let's start down here. So we've got, we both attack on, I'll put these 2 dice down so you can follow what I'm doing. They've got a basic attack of 4. But because they're charging, they now hit on 3s. These will still have to hit on 4s. But they do get the support from this unit, which is, you know, right next to it. All right, I think the bases are supposed to touch, but that's near enough. I do it if there's a small gap, there's not a problem. So they're supporting. Well, first of all, the Romans get 7 attack dice. Okay. And in the first bound of a melee, the clash, looking at the clash column on the army list, the warband gets 8. So they get more attack dice in this bound. They won't do next time, it'll go down to 6, whereas the Romans will stay on 7. The reason for that is that the Romans are pretty steady and they fight at the same level. The warband, when it charges in, the first impact is normally very, very effective. But then after that, they pull back. They don't hit quite so well. So they really need to win in the first round if they can. Now, this unit will also be supported by the unit on its left, which gives another 2 attack dice. So we'll roll for the Romans first, hitting on 3s. So they missed 1. I got 6 hits. So let's roll for the armour or the morale save for the Dacians first. There's 6 dice to roll. And not forgetting that the Pelham, the enemy get a -1 morale save in the first round. Now they're normally saving on 5s and 6s, but because of that Pelham, they're only saving on 6s. So let's roll those 6 dice. Well, they did still save 2, so that's pretty good going, really. So I'm just going to put a little dice, the white dice, behind there to say that's how many hits that's taken this move. 4. Right, now we're going to attack with the Dacians. They're hitting on 4s. Let's take out the ones that didn't hit. Oh, that's not that brilliant, is it? But it does, if you remember, the Wildfighters re-roll 2 missed combat attacks. First round game only. So they can re-roll 2 of the dice that missed, and they get 2 more. That was handy. So that's 5 hits. The Romans now save on 4, 5, 6. And they did save 3 of them. So the Romans took 2 hits. So I'm going to put a little dice there. Right, so the Dacians lost 4, the Romans lost 2, which means the Romans won. I'm going to put a little disc here behind, which meant they won that round of combat, which means next turn they get a bonus for winning the last combat. Now the difference in the dice is 2, so the losers have to roll a dice, a break test. They roll 2 dice and they've got to take 2 off that break test. They rolled 6, which wasn't brilliant, was it really? Which means it goes down to 4. And 4, if you look at the hand-to-hand results, is break if shaken. Well, it's not shaken. Otherwise, give ground together with supporters, all disordered. Wow. So, in fact, they become disordered. And the supporters do. So that's a real blow for the Dacians. And they have to give ground. So giving ground is one move. They have to move back into that terrain again. They're carrying now, if you'll notice that white dice, which was the hits it received in this round. Just move those forward. I'm going to replace that now with a green dice because I know that that's they're going to be kept separate really. For next time they fight, I'll use the white dice to indicate how many lost that round, and the fours carried forward. The same with the Romans. That will now turn to a green dice. The Romans do have the option to follow up. Oh, incidentally, I need to move these back as well. They've all fallen back. The Romans get to follow up if they wish. Well, they do. They might as well keep pushing, and they're moving up. So the first round was really, really good for the Romans. Right, so the Romans have moved up. I don't believe that these, because they're disordered, can now act as support to this disordered unit. So let me know if you disagree with that. So I'm now going to move on to the next melee. Again, we're going to start the same process. We both start off hitting on fours. The Romans get 7 dice. The Dacians get 8. But the Romans are attacking, so they hit on 3s. And that is it. It's quite straightforward. So we'll do the Romans first. Hitting on 3s. Ooh, they missed 3 there. No, they missed 4. That's not very good at all. So they get 3 hits. The Dacians try and save, normally with 5 and 6, but because it's the first round, the Pelham has been used, they only save on 6. No, they didn't save any, so they've taken 3 hits. Now the Dacians' turn. They're hitting on 4s. That's pretty good. Now it can re-roll 2 misses, but there's only 1, so I'll re-roll that. Well, they're all hits. Look at that, all 8 hit. So now the Romans have got to try and save those with 4s. Wow, it's pretty good, isn't it? Save 6. So they took 2 casualties. Which means that they are the winner. They get the little indicator that they won the melee. And the enemy then have to do, the losers have to do a test. Let's roll the dice. Oh dear, this is not good, is it? So they rolled 4. The difference in the casualties was 1, so it goes down to 3. And that says for break if shaken, so it's not shaken. Otherwise, give ground together with supports all disordered. So again, they've been pushed back. They're going to go back and they're going to be disordered as well. Crikey, this isn't going well for the Dacians at the moment, is it? I'm going to change that now to a green dice to indicate that's a carried forward figure. This is just the way I do it, so I don't get confused about, you know, whether the casualties were this move or last move. Just helps me remember. The Romans are following up. There was incidentally no support over here because they're already engaged. Now over here, one thing I didn't mention is that these do have the option to evade, and they can move, and you have to activate them to try and get them to evade. So we're going to roll anyway, because they wouldn't stand there. They're going to roll to see whether they evade or not. Oh, they do. Right, so it rolled 2 1s, so it's able to run away as fast as it can. It'll do 3 moves. So 1, 2, 3. There we are. It's well and truly out of the well. It doesn't slow down because of the terrain, because it's a skirmish unit. And this unit, in fact, would have carried on and would have ended up where a 6-inch move. So they've stayed where they are. They won't go any further. They couldn't have, I don't believe they could have acted as support for these. I might be wrong with that, but because they were charging themselves, I'm not sure they can count as support. Maybe someone will let me know that. So that's the first round of melee over. And now it's the next turn. So it is the Dacians' turn. The first thing we're going to do is these guys are going to try and charge the archers. Because they're going to need 3 moves to get there. The first one will, oh no, they'll hit on 2. So they need to roll a 6 or under to be able to do that. And they rolled a 7. So they only moved the once. That's a bit unfortunate for them. They could have really done with going in there. They did have the option, of course, to have moved up to support these, but they really wanted to take those bows out if they could. So they opted to charge in, but they failed to do so. If they'd been within 6 inches, they would have done so anyway on initiative. They could have moved next to this unit to support it with its initiative, but as I say, it felt more important to get rid of those bowmen, and it failed to do so. Now, normally skirmishers can move if they can see an enemy. I'm not sure whether they can see through all this mess here, although it's pretty much assumed that there's fighting going on, so they should be able to see them. So I'm assuming they can move one move back into the wood, which I will now do. There we are, they're just going to go into that wood. This move, they're not going to do anything else. They're not within range to shoot. If I wanted to move them up to support these, I'd have to have thrown for it. Maybe that would have been a better idea, actually, because that would be 2 moves. Let's just see if I did order them, try and activate them, what would happen. Yeah, they would have done. Let's do that. Let's give them a bit of a chance. The Dacians are in a bit of trouble at the moment, so I'm going to let them get away with that. They've gone into support of that melee that's going on. And again, I understand that they can support the disordered troops. If they were disordered themselves, they couldn't support, but they're not disordered themselves, so I think they can support that unit. If I'm wrong, let me know. So that's it. All these in here can't do much more. This unit can't support now because it's disordered, and it has to stand there for 1 move. And once it has stood there for 1 move, the disorder's removed. So I'll take that away now because I know I'll forget otherwise, but that hasn't been able to do anything. It just stands there watching what's going on. Right, so we got 2 melees again. So we'll start down the one nearest to me. Both start on 4, hitting on 4s. But don't forget, these get the bonus because they won last time, so now hitting on 3s. But sadly for these guys, they're disordered, they're now only hitting on 5s. So it will affect, they go down, they got less a chance to hit where the Romans go up. The Romans have got 7 dice, and this time the warband has only got 6 dice. So let's do the Romans first, hitting on 3s. Okay, so that's 6 hits. So the Dacians save on 5s. They saved 1, but they took 5 hits. So I'm going to put that behind. You can see why I use different coloured dice now, because the 4 is the carryover and the 5 is how many it's lost this turn. Right, now they're going to fight back. They got 6 dice, hitting on 5s only. That's 2, whoops, that's 2 hits. The Romans, the legionaries try and save on 4, 5, 6. They saved 1, so they've only taken 1 casualty. Right, so the difference was 4, which means the Dacians have to roll a morale dice. Now they've only rolled 5, taking off 4 for the difference between the losses. And if you look at the table, it says 2 or less, it breaks. So that warband has gone. So a bit of a disaster. The Dacians are really struggling here at the moment. I think I'm doing everything right. They did win, but of course they're not going to be fighting the same unit. They can follow up still if they wish. They don't have to, so they're just going to stand there. But they won't get that bonus because they won't be following up that unit that's gone. I'll move all these other bits and pieces, and you'll notice now that the green dice on the legionaries was 2 and it was 1 on the white dice. So I'm going to remove the white dice but increase the green dice up to 3. So that's their total losses so far. Right, the next melee we've got over there, which is 2 units, both start off on 4. They go down to 3 because they won the last melee. These are disordered, same as last time. Go up to 5. The Romans roll 7 dice. They will get 2 more in a minute though, the Dacians, but 7 dice hitting on 3s. Look at that, 4 misses. So it could have been better. 3 hits. The Dacians save on 5 and 6. Didn't save any. That's a bit unfortunate, which puts them on 3 hits for this move. They've got 6 to hit back, plus the 2 supports from... Now they get 3 supports from the javelin men, not 2, they get 3. But the javelin men will still hit on 4. So let's do the 6 warriors first, hitting on 5s. Well, they got 3 hits, that's pretty good. And then the support coming in, 3 more dice, hitting on 4s because they're not in disorder. 2 more hits, so that's 5 hits total, and they're still saving on 4, 5, 6. They saved 2, so they lost 3 men. So we'll put that over here. So that was a draw. Now, interestingly enough, this would have to do a test if it was shaken. Now it is shaken now, it's just become shaken because they've taken 6 casualties. So I'll put a shaken marker there. And the rules do read out, he said, if a fighting unit that is already shaken draws a hand-to-hand combat, has to do a break test. Well, it wasn't shaken when the move started. So looking in the book, it says here, it doesn't say much more, it just says, if a fighting unit that is shaken draws a hand-to-hand combat. It didn't start shaking, it is shaken now. I really don't know what the answer to that is. I would imagine that because it's become shaken, the fact that it's now a draw, it becomes shaken from the losses, I would think it would have to do a test. If I'm wrong, you can maybe let me know. I'm taking it that if it was shaken at any point, and it was, by the end of that move. It didn't lose, we both took 3 casualties each. I'm going to make that now a 5. The Romans have got 5 casualties, take the white one away. And this one I'm going to take the dice away because once it's shaken that counts, it's got 6 casualties anyway. And I'm going to do a test for it. Please let me know if you think I'm wrong. Oh dear, that's a disaster, isn't it, really? Now it's a melee that we're doing, and there's no minus because they drew the actual result. But it does say here, break if shaken, otherwise. So, break if shaken. It's shaken, so they go. They disappear, I'm afraid. Now, do tell me if you think I've done that wrong. Oh, but that's the way I've done it anyway. So these are still in the game. Steve have got 5 casualties now, but they're still okay. Right, that's it. Turn over. It's now the Romans' turn. Now again, something I'm not absolutely certain of here. If this unit wishes to move and attack these, I don't know whether they can move sideways and attack, or whether they swing around and then these turn to face. But then you could argue, would they come round? But I don't think there's room, because if you look at the 6-inch move here, they wouldn't be able to bring their... this would have to stay still, and these would have to swing around to about here. So if they're going to do that, it has to be done by rolling a dice, I would imagine. So that's how I'm going to do it. Please let me know if that's wrong. You can't do it on initiative. There's not room to make contact. I don't believe you can move sideways to go into contact. You have to move at an angle to your frontage. But I believe they can, as long as they can move twice, they can go into contact. If they can't, then if they don't, then they won't go in. So let me roll the dice. Well, they rolled a 4, so they've got plenty of room to do that. So I'm going to swing these round and hit those in the flank. The Dacians can attempt to turn. They have to roll a d6, and on a 1, 2, 3 they fail. 4, 5, 6 they do turn. they fouled, so they're being hit in the flank. I'm going to try and charge the auxiliary into the wood after those light infantry. They can do one move, that's all they can do. The skirmishers will try and evade, which they failed to do. They do get to move once, which means they will stay ahead of the chargers, which will, in fact, their full move will be about here. They've gone into open order. I think they have to go into open order when they go into a wood. What we're going to do with these, if they turn around here, they'll be hitting them with a second unit. It would certainly be worth doing, I think. So we're going to try and do that. We're going to swing round. We do need 2 moves to do it. No, they only do the 1. So it will get about here, and it's not outflanking that unit. The bowmen are going to open fire, or they could try and run, I suppose, but they're hoping that they will cause damage. So roll 3 dice, hitting on 4s. They've got 1 hit. Let's see if it's a save. No, it's not a save. So they've taken a hit, and it means that they're going to be in trouble next move, because these will be able to hit them. However, by then we've already got 2 broken units from the division. If this unit breaks, then this becomes broken as well. So the Romans are hoping that that is the case. So let's do this melee. We've got hitting on 4s again, the Romans, but they are not following up, but they are charging, so they're hitting on 3s. And the warriors are hitting on 4s. However, if you look at the hand-to-hand modifiers, these are engaged to the flank or rear, so that drops down to now 5s. That's the hand-to-hand modifier. They're not hitting as well. So the Romans hitting on 3s. Let's do those first. Wow, all 7 hit. Okay. The Dacians have got a morale save of 6. See how many they save? They don't save any. So they've got 7 hits on them. My goodness, that's a bit of a disaster, isn't it? And they're hitting back. They've got 9 dice, of course, so they're hoping to do well here. They're already 7 down. They're hitting on 5s, as I mentioned. There we are. And they do re-roll 2 misses. Well, that's pretty good, isn't it? They've got 3 misses. Let's re-roll 2 of them. Actually, that's a 4 as well. So they got 6 hits there. Now, this is where the double-handed weapon comes in. The morale for the Romans is capped at 5+. So they don't save on 4, 5, 6. Then you save on 5 and 6. Let's see how many they can save. Well, they still save 3. So they lost 3. Which means, incidentally, that the Romans now become shaken. But then also so do the Dacians. So the Dacians lost that by 4, so they're the ones that have to do a break test. Let's see how they get on. They rolled 5, not good. Minus the 4, they're down to 1. Oh dear, 2 or less, they break. So the Dacians broke. In fact, the leader should have gone in there, really. His extra 2 hits might have made a difference. I forgot that. He could have gone into the melee, but there's a chance he'll die if he did that. So that effectively is game over, because you can't count skirmishers as part of the division with regards to losing or a division breaking. But once the Dacians lost 3 of their 4 main units, then the whole division becomes broken, and it's effectively game over. So what do you think? It was quite amazing. The Roman did roll quite well. I was quite lucky when I was rolling for the Romans. The Dacians didn't really get going, did they? You'd think they would have done. Maybe another time they will. I had a dummy run yesterday, and they did much better. They nearly broke the Romans. The Romans did win, but only by the skin of their teeth. This time it was a bit dramatic, wasn't it? If it had been another turn, these would have gone in here, but because they're now broken, they can only withdraw. So as I say, game is over, and I'll win for the Romans. Now, I hope you enjoyed that. It may have been a bit slow, because as I say, I'm sort of getting into Hail Caesar again after about a 4 or 5 year break, a long time. I've played some Black Powder, and I've played some Pike and Shot, which are very similar, because they're all made by Warlord Games. They're very similar, but I haven't actually played Hail Caesar for about 4 or 5 years, and I've been wanting to get back into it for some time. So I'm having a few games on my table here to familiarise myself with the rules. I'm looking things up if I don't think I've got them right. And this was my first stab at it, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope I didn't make too many mistakes. And please, if you spotted anything, then by all means let me know. I don't mind. I'm sure I made some somewhere along the line. Thanks for watching. Please like the video. It helps a lot if you like my videos on my channel, and share if you can, and obviously if you've not already subscribed, do so. And good to see you, and I'll see you again soon.